Welcome to Mormon Land, a podcast all about the news and culture of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and other Mormon faiths. I'm religion reporter Tamara Kimsley, and I'm joined by Senior Managing Editor Dave Noyce, who oversees our faith coverage. Hello, Dave.
Hi, Tamara.
Before we get started, a quick ask. We invite you to go to patreon.com/MormonLand. That is patreon.com/MormonLand and click on Become a Member. There you can access all of the Tribune's faith coverage, podcasts, transcripts, and the full Mormon Land newsletter. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/MormonLand. And if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram at Mormon.land. Now for today's episode. Taylor Frankie Paul, Latia Gar, Sherry Frankie, Andy Reid, Lisa Barlow, Hannah Neeleman. What do they all have in common? For our incredibly online friends, the answer is obvious. All are Latter-day Saints. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe not. But these are just some of the names representing, albeit unofficially, and defining the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for millions around the world. If we're being honest, probably more so than any single church leader or hardworking historian of the faith. Put simply, they matter. So do the Netflix miniseries and Hulu tell-alls that studios are churning out at ever faster rates. Here at Mormon Land, we've done our best to blend those conversations with all the other reporting our listeners care about, and we will continue to host some of those conversations. But there's no way we can do it all anymore. There's just too much happening that deserves attention. And that is why the Mormon Land media empire is expanding. We are excited to announce a new partnership with Mormons in Media. It is the brainchild of Tribune guest columnist Rebbe Brassfield, perhaps the only person in the world to equate playing pickleball to crossing the plains with handcarts, and Tribune audience team member Nicole Weaver, whom superfans will recognize as a co-producer of our Mormon Land podcast. Together, the two plan to track the developments of Latter-day Saint representations in the media, and they join us today to tell us more about what people can expect from this new venture. Rebbe and Nicole, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited.
And Rebbe, first of all, just talk us through whose idea was this? How did it come about, this collaboration specifically?
Well, really, it was Kyle, who's not here today. Kyle, you get credit for this. Kyle sent an email a while back saying he had kind of had an idea to start including more pop culture coverage in the podcast you guys were doing. And he's like, I had this thought, and I thought, I'd followed Mormons in Media for a while, and I thought Rebbe would be great for this. And then I started a podcast. Initially, Mormons in Media, for most of the time I've run it, has just been an Instagram account. But I launched a podcast in November. So then he reached out and was like, would you still be interested in doing something? Like, I think it could, it's a little bit different than what you're currently doing, what we have in mind. So we just started brainstorming, he and Nicole and I, and yeah, that's where we are today.
And Kyle really is, I think Dave was about to say something similar.
Kyle Hansen, so people know, Kyle Hansen is a supervisor for Nicole, a colleague of ours. He is the audience team editor, essentially, director. And so it's his brainchild, I guess, is where it started.
Yeah. And it kind of came from him saying, like, it's interesting because Nicole has been on staff for how long? A couple years now, right?
Yeah, I think this will be my third year.
Okay. So he's like, it's interesting. We've just had so many conversations where Nicole lives outside Utah. She's not a member of the church, but she watches a lot of pop culture. And so she watches Housewives, and she's interested in reality TV, but she's always asking us like these are her entry points for Mormonism, right? She grew up not knowing members of the church. I think, Nicole, did you say your first really exposure to it was the Book of Mormon musical?
Yeah, like just knowing that it existed and not really understanding, but just knowing that it's there. Like, I had no idea if it was loved, hated. That was probably just the first time I had heard the word Mormon. Yeah.
So essentially, he's like, we're having all these conversations where she's asking things that she's, getting this information from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, but we're not watching it, right? So he's like, we're trying to figure out how to bridge these gaps from, people who are outside the church who are seeing so much representation and wondering, they have questions about it. They wonder how accurate it is, how common it is, and they need a place to direct those questions. So that's kind of the concept behind it.
So, Nicole, you were introduced to the church through the eyes of Elder Price and Elder Arnold of the Book of Mormon musical, right? So,
basically, and it just, it just launched a bunch of curiosity. And for me, at least, my background is in radio. So before working for the Tribune, I worked in radio for the last 12 years. And curiosity is a good thing in radio because it sparks conversations. But curiosity in the real world, sometimes can get taken the wrong way, or you don't know someone's intentions if you don't, truly know them. And I think coming from that, that's kind of where this bridge can come together, because people have questions, and they might just not know how to word them, or they might see something. And the way that I like to relate it is my wife works in the medical field, and I cannot get her to watch Grey's Anatomy or any of these other like drama medical related shows. And I mean, she cringes, she can't do it. And it just kind of like dawned on me, like, I bet you anything so many members of the church feel the same way. Like, I'm watching this and I'm, quote unquote learning, or think I'm learning, but really I'm just gaining these stereotypes, or I'm just learning entertainment. Whereas, actual members are cringing knowing that like this is how they're portrayed.
Just to tee this up, Latter-day Saints make up just a small percentage of Americans, barely 2% of the population. Yet they seem to have an oversized presence and influence on today's media landscape. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. That's essentially the question that made me want to start doing this, right? This whole thing started years ago. My friend Jill and I, we were both living and working in Los Angeles. I was working in advertising. She was getting a screenwriting degree at Pepperdine. And so this was really on both of our minds. We're both members of the church, trying to work in media, feeling like we don't really fit in, right? And it kind of we started just texting each other anytime we would see a reference to Mormonism, right? And anything we were reading or watching, and we were just so surprised at how frequently we were seeing them. And we were like, we need to explore this. Like, what does this mean? Why is this happening? Right? So like pre-social media, I mean, I have a couple ideas. Essentially, if I could answer this question, I mean, that's why I've been doing this, right? Is trying to figure out like, why are we everywhere and yet nowhere? Because that's really how it seemed, especially at the beginning. It was always throwaway references to polygamy, sobriety, lots of kids, but there was never anything that felt accurate or even like genuinely curious, right? So that's how it all started. I mean, I think one idea is that we're kind of look very normal, but have a weird religion, right? Like we have this, stereotypically speaking, a very like all-American clean cut look, and yet we worship inside these buildings that no one else can go inside, right? There's this element of mystery to it that I think people are it naturally makes people curious. I think a big part pre-social or post-social media is that Mormonism, a community is so inherent to Mormonism, right? This idea of being a part of a big community, contributing to it. Like, I mean, you're part of a community since at the age of 18 months, you go into nursery, right? And if you're part of the church, you learn how to work with people you don't know. There's public speaking elements, right? There's like leadership opportunities. So I think that we are kind of just naturally trained on how to build a community. And essentially that's what social media is, right? That's what women were doing in the early 2000s when they were creating mommy blogs, right? Like they, had these communities at church, but I think maybe started to feel a little isolated in motherhood. And then it was a way they could kind of extend their community online. So I think that is, still what people are doing who have a big online following. I also think pop culture has a fascination with good girls gone bad. And it's not unique to Mormonism, right? I mean, you look at like Britney Spears, or maybe more specifically Jessica Simpson, where so much of her narrative was like, she's a sex symbol, but she's waiting till marriage. And everyone knows that. And it's this big thing. And then, we watch her life kind of fall apart and get back together. Like it's kind of gross, but I think people are fascinated by that. So, I mean,
by the way, as a fellow millennial, I just really appreciated those specific references. And again, that was like an anchor of my development, you know?
Right?
Those two stories right there.
Have you read Jessica Simpson's memoir?
No, should I?
It is fascinating. I listened to it. She narrates it. She like weeps through most of it. Like it's very, but it is fascinating to like go back to that time and see like what was happening to women in pop culture and like what was permissible at the time. It's kind of horrifying, but I think it's specifically good girls gone bad, especially when they're conventionally attractive. And with Mormonism, right, it's like you have these women who are, a lot of them, especially in Utah, have this one certain look. There is a big emphasis on, cleanliness, attractiveness. But then I think people kind of know that Mormonism, it's like higher stakes, right? You can get kicked out of it. We are more high demand maybe than like your average Christian religion. And our underwear is involved, right? So like, I think it's wine. It is a perfect recipe. Like we couldn't have come up with a more perfect recipe for fascinating reality television.
So Nicole, is she right? Are those some of the more tantalizing bits?
Yeah, I would agree. I grew up Southern Baptist. So growing up Baptist, like you know what it is. It's just a branch and people know what they believe in. And you go to church, and if you don't, okay, there's the holiday goers and there's not, but it's just that. And any time that I learned something about like Latter-day Saints and the church and temple and all of that, everything was new. Everything felt strange and felt distant and felt foreign from growing up in a religion that really is so different. And it just seemed like, to me personally, the curiosity comes from, how can religions be so different but say they want the same thing? And I think that, like, to me, in my quest of spirituality, but also just growing up in this world, that's the question that keeps me curious, but it also keeps me wanting to learn, because we got here somehow, and it doesn't seem like it's going to change. So
Nicole, I just wanted to ask you, so when you produce Mormonland, what's go through your mind sometime as we're having a discussion?
Question, yeah.
You must have learned some things, or think, oh my gosh, I didn't know they thought that, or tell me some of your thoughts just as a producer of what's gone through your mind.
Yeah, it's been really, really interesting to hear different perspectives and to kind of like different ranges too, which, I think just like in any religion or in any capacity of life, like there's different levels and different people take different things more seriously. And that's always been really interesting to hear for each subject that we've talked about, like whether it was, someone who is no longer part of the faith because of their sexuality, or it was someone who is still part of the faith, but now dealing with immigration, all of these things are so real. And it's just I don't know, it's a different, I feel like life itself is hard enough. Like day to day, you have a set of things that you have to do and you have to maneuver through life as an adult, but then you add, your responsibilities as, I don't know, a parent, a coworker, a sibling, whatever. And then you have to add on the responsibilities of your church. And to me, that's like a whole different layer of, whoa, it's very interesting because it shapes the way people's mind work. And that's interesting.
Have you, from what you've learned as a producer, just a quick question on this again. Has it changed how you view those shows now? You're thinking, oh, I know that's not necessarily how all Latter-day Saints think, or that's kind of has it informed how you view the show, the reality shows in this case?
I do think so, because I will say, like, when it comes to the two types of shows that I typically consume, just as a consumer, I'm either watching like true crime or reality TV. Like those are my two sweet spots. And Mormonism happens to be in the both of them. And
Yeah.
so it has been eye-opening because before I got into, the Real Housewives, Secret Lives, like those types of reality TV shows, before that it was the documentaries, about the bombings or about, certain things, and learning about that, or, even Under the Banner of Heaven, like those types of shows that I watched before the reality TV, like it does, if you don't know anything about it, it does put a seed in your head of like, this is crazy. Like how did they get here? But when you learn about it and you learn people's experiences and you see that there is a wide range, like it makes more sense. And it's not, you're not so quick to be like, okay, well, everyone thinks that way.
There are flavors, varieties,
Yes.
for sure. So this is going to be ongoing, right? So Mormons in Media already exists. Nicole's going to be joining. So for fans of Mormons in Media, how will this change things? This is for Rebby specifically. How is it really just the different format is more Q&A between the two of you, or how would you explain it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that most of what I've been doing right now with Mormons in Media has been among different members of the church, right? So I've mostly been talking with other members of the church who care about how we're represented, and kind of like figuring out how we all feel about it. Like, do we wish it would change? How do we wish it would change? I'm also talking with lots of creators about like, what are they doing? What are they, some filmmakers. I talked to Kirby Hayborn. I've talked to I'm talking to Gabrielle Blair from Design Mom later this week. Like I'm talking with people who are members of the church mostly, about this issue, right? So I think what I'm super excited about is having someone outside the church, right? I think I try to do as good of a job as I can at looking at things, looking at what people outside are saying. But I am really excited to get feedback from someone outside the church, because I feel like I have lots of blind spots, right? Like having grown up in this church, being in Utah now, like I just have blind spots I can't see that I think only someone outside can see. I'm also just really excited to have more kind of a balanced, like a conversation between the two sides. I'm using air quotes for anyone listening. One thing that I have always tried to do is be more fair and not like take sides. I think one thing you see with church related content online is it feels like most accounts have kind of like planted a flag. Like, okay, I'm on this side or I'm on this side, and the only content we produce is for the church or against the church, right? And it doesn't feel like we have a lot of conversations happening with people on both sides. So I see my followers responding really well anytime I do that. And so I'm just really excited to have a place where it's a one-on-one conversation, right? Between two people who genuinely want to understand and are trying to ask questions and answer in a genuine, honest way, right? Because I think so much of what happens online, like it's just so easy. So often it's just kind of a joke about Mormonism, and because of the format of social media, it's just really not a great place for healthy dialogue, right? Back and forth between like genuine people who are seeking to understand. So I think that's what will be different, is it will be someone who's like, give us more insight into obviously we've said like, Nicole isn't representative of everyone outside the church, and I am certainly not representative of everyone inside it, but just two people who are willing to have kind of like a more in-depth one-on-one conversation and just see where that goes. I think it'll go to different places than what I'm currently doing will go.
And that I kind of want to continue that a little bit, Rebby. You talked about some of the people you've interviewed. You're going to have Gabby Blair on. What are some other topics you plan to discuss or to cover?
Yeah, on this podcast? Yeah. So, I mean, a perfect example would have been this recent season of The Bachelor. Anyone who watched that knows that Latia, who made it to the runner-up, it feels weird to call her the runner-up, but essentially it is.
Wait,
a game
she
show.
wasn't picked?
She wasn't picked. and yeah, and like, so she's a member of the church. She represented the church in a way I've never seen before. Watching her was so fascinating. She's incredible. I'm her number one fan. But like, since she didn't get picked, there's been so much speculation on, a big narrative that emerged after was like, well, of course he didn't pick her. She's Mormon. Like, that's going to freak him out, And so one thing we've talked about is, we could do an episode about The Bachelor, my experience watching it, her experience watching it, the questions she has, like, and then also maybe we would pick just one more, I guess I hesitate to say doctrinal question of like, what are the implications of marrying someone outside the LDS church, right? So I think we'll kind of take a piece of pop culture and then pick a question, one main question, and then kind of focus on that, right? We could also, like you mentioned, American Primeval, that would be, a show we could talk about, like, what is the role of a prophet? What are the tensions between having like a human being on earth that you think that people believe is the mouthpiece of God, right? We could talk about, Dancing with the Stars. Why are so many of them from Utah? And does Utah equal Mormon? And, some of that. So I think we'll try and kind of piggyback on things that are happening currently in pop culture, but pick maybe one, again, is doctrinal the word? One
theological,
theological question that's like something that Nicole has wondered, and then we'll just kind of use that as like a springboard for a question that people who are outside the church who are watching will likely be having. So yeah, I started making a list of these, and there's so many. Like, I'm constantly surprised by how many opportunities there are to talk about Mormons in media. So I feel like we'll have no shortage of material.
I'm reading Sherry Frankie's memoir. This is the daughter of the 8 Passengers YouTube blogger who was abusive. I would love to hear you talk about how Sherry Frankie deals with her Mormonism, because she could so easily have gone the way of like, it corrupted my mother and ruined my life, but she doesn't. And some of the heroes in the story are fellow Latter-day Saints. That was interesting to me. That's my I'm putting that in the suggestion box.
Put it on the list, yeah.
So, okay, I want to zoom out, right? For both of you, there can be a stigma around pop culture, that it's shallow or ephemeral. What would you say to those who express skepticism about the need to even have these conversations, to foreground these characters in these shows?
I can start.
Sure.
I think now more than ever, we're craving dialogue. Like, we need conversation. I think, in the digital era, in the social media era, stereotypes ruin lives, and they also create an even bigger divide. So I look at it more as these are genuine, raw thoughts and conversations that can hopefully bring people together, or at least lift the skewed thought process that they have on something that they don't know about, because that, I think, ignorance is bliss, and there is nothing more dangerous than having real formed opinions on something you don't know about. And I think that is the power of finding someone who was raised different than you, believes differently than you, has a different lifestyle than you. That's truly where we learn and where we get these life experiences and how we elevate our time on this earth, regardless of what you believe in. So I think that it's just a really good time to start having tough conversations.
Yeah. For me, I think like stigma against pop culture. I think, I grew up in Provo, we didn't really watch TV in my house growing up. Not that it was like forbidden. We just like didn't really watch it. And I very much grew up with this idea that like the world was out there and we were in here and they were kind of against us, and they were scary and we didn't, interact with them. and then I moved to LA to work in advertising, and I was like, thrown into that and had to kind of figure out how to like reconcile those two parts of my reality, right? And like, I think that I just found that so much of that fear of the world, I find it so unhelpful. I feel like it like creates this unnecessary, this idea of a boundary that doesn't have to be there, right? And like, I think that members kind of, typically have had kind of a fear of the media and this idea that it's against them. But I mean, for me, like I work in advertising, I work in marketing. To me, like perception, PR, the conversation happening in the media is everything. Like I've always felt like, and I know the church cares a lot about PR, but I feel like PR is missionary work, right? Like as I was, starting my job and having conversations with all these people who were like, what, wait, you're Mormon? Like, what are you doing here? Like, how did, all these questions. It was like, what was out in the world about Mormonism at that time did not help me out in having those conversations. Right. And like, I feel like it can be an icebreaker. Right. And I think some people are afraid of it because everyone on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives isn't the perfect upstanding, example of what some people think a Mormon should be. But it's an icebreaker. It's a conversation starter. And so I guess this is a very long way of me just saying like, I want to see less fear from people in the church and maybe more like using that also as a bridge to ask someone, oh, you watched that show? Like, what did you think of it? That's actually my religion. Like, I'm so curious, like how it came off to you. And do you have any questions about like what it actually was like? So I just feel like it's already happening. We're not going to not make it happen. Right. And like, do I think that reality TV is like edifying? No, I don't. But I think people are watching it. And so we should be aware of it and like embrace that this is some people's only exposure to the church.
Okay. I'm going to ask just what are your favorite shows in this vein? In this genre, I guess you could call. Not necessarily an episode, but the actual show. Rebby, what's your favorite?
That show
that is like, is it Secret Lives right now? What is your favorite show?
Does it, and it has to contain members of the church?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not expecting you to say Amadeus, okay, or something, okay? So...
Well, it's interesting because I've found that since I'll often say on Instagram, like I started this to be a fun hobby and now I'm having to watch all these shows I hate as a chore, like Under the Banner of Heaven. I like watched it fully as a chore, right? I did not like, and I'm not naturally inclined to watch. I don't watch a lot of reality TV. I mean, I would say The Bachelor was my favorite recently because it showed like how powerful one good representative of the church, like Latia has bought the church more. She has garnered more good PR, more goodwill for the church than, I don't know, than millions of dollars probably that the church has spent trying to correct that. And it's because she was in a place where people don't expect a member of the church to be, right? And so I think, it's also a super heavy burden for her to carry. Because, and no one should have to carry the full weight of representing a religion, and I just think she's done such a good job of like showing that there are different flavors of it and like being who she is, but also like owning it. So, I mean, for me, especially, I haven't watched every season of The Bachelor, but like, I watched it growing up. I've been in and out of it. It's a format I'm super familiar with. And like to see her added into it was like mind-blowing. I am super hopeful. I have to think that somewhere there's a producer who's pitching. I know they're not doing a Bachelorette this year, and I think Bachelor is kind of like faded. It's not as popular as it used to be, but I have to hope there is someone pitching an all LDS Bachelor, because like now would be the time for it. And I think you actually could do it in a way that would be really interesting and fascinating to people. Maybe I'll eat my words because maybe that will be terrible. I would say that's my favorite show. I do also want to say I was pleasantly surprised by Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Just in that it did give, I think if you genuinely watched it, I think most members who say they hated it maybe didn't watch it. But if you watched it, it broke a lot of stereotypes, I think. And like it showed people a different kind of Mormon woman, which is all I'm ever looking for, is just more coverage from different kinds of members of the church. And I think that's something that Secret Lives definitely did. We'll see about season 2. It looks like they're going for high drama, but yeah.
Nicole, what about you?
I will piggyback on that by saying I was pleasantly surprised by the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and really towards the end of it, I felt very like team, like it was like I was cheering on for the girls, you know, like towards the end of it, it really seemed like it had a nice setup. Like you said, we'll see what season 2 is, but it had a nice setup for it to be like women empowerment. And so I was pleasantly surprised by that. I really, really liked Under the Banner of Heaven, but I'm also a big Andrew Garfield fan. So
Huge.
I like just acting wise, I felt like that was just a really well produced show. But I also do enjoy the documentaries of people explaining why they leave the church. I think one that I watched was Mormon No More.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. And I think it all just comes down to people's experiences. I think people's experiences on a wide range of scale deserve, like their voices deserve to be heard, just like everybody's.
Let me ask you, I'm going to name some shows now. Just give a thumbs up or thumbs down. Now, you may have seen some you may not have. Okay. So
Can I play?
Yeah, you can play tomorrow, as long as you can't write about them now. But no. Okay, let's start.
I definitely want to play.
Okay, let's start with Secret Lives. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Going thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay, let's go to one we haven't talked about, which is sort of fringe. Sister Wives. Anyone watch Sister Wives?
I haven't watched it.
In fact, I just watched the latest episode before I logged on for work this morning.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Ooh, I don't know if you've ever heard the term like hate watching, but I feel like I hate watch that show. Like I now watch it for I can't really stand Cody and Robin. But this new season, you know, the other wives, Christine's now married, you know, one's dating, one just got a spiritual divorce. So that feels fun for me to like see them tell Cody to
Okay, so American Primeval. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I haven't seen that one.
Can I give it a thumbs down if I haven't watched it? And I try to watch as many of these shows as I can. That one, I think because of violence, and I loved your guys' episode on it, and how just historically inaccurate was kind of threw me out of it. I'm going to put a plug in for a show that is American Primeval-esque, but I think better. It's an old AMC show called Hell on Wheels, and it's about have any of you guys seen it?
I've heard of it. I've heard it, and I heard it during during that podcast. Yes.
Okay. It's really good. It's essentially a Western. It's about the building of the Union Pacific Railroad. And anytime the town, wherever they would build the railroad and they would make a little pop-up town, and that town was always called Hell on Wheels. That's why it's called that. The name, I feel like, makes it sound like it's something it's not. But it's really good. It's like a Western. There's lots of overlap with Mormonism. Brigham Young is a character in it. But it doesn't feel as, and it's like, it felt like all of the Mormon characters and all the inclusion felt totally justified. It felt like part of the story, but it wasn't exaggerated for drama. It was certainly used for drama, but like that's one show that I really enjoyed it and felt like it made sense. So if you liked American Primeval, or if you didn't watch it because it's too violent, Hell on Wheels is, there's some violent, but it's got a really good, I think it's 5 seasons, really good characters, like long character development set in that same time.
Okay. One we've already talked about, Nicole's talked about, Under the Banner of Heaven. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Nicole, thumbs up.
2 thumbs down.
Rebby, thumbs down. Okay.
I'm excited. We might have to talk about that one.
Okay. I'm going to ask one more, because you mentioned this, Nicole. Murder Among the Mormons. This was about the bombings of Mark Hoffman. Up or down?
I loved it.
Documentary.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Let's go to the Big Kahuna. Book of Mormon musical, up or down?
I mean, that was a big kahuna like 20 years ago.
Yeah,
But it's how Nicole started.
It's true.
It's what got her into this.
For that reason, I give it a thumbs up. I don't know. I'm of the, like, I think, again, it's a conversation starter. Like, we're in conversations we weren't before. So even if it's maybe negative in some instances.
Yeah, I think I would have a different experience with it now that actually that might really be what I need to do, you know, like, because I'm like, this was like 15 years ago. So not much of memory.
But it's still one of the largest Broadway, productions of all time, still plays to sellout crowds around the world.
It's true.
So
You're right.
It is a big deal, and kind of started this new focus of what began all these other shows. They thought, I mean, if there's one thing Hollywood knows, it's how they sometimes can make money. And the Book of Mormon musical showed there's money to be made off Mormons. And that's what they're doing. And so it's a gross show. Okay. There's no question. Seen it. Yeah. Oh, it's gross. I've seen it twice in Chicago and in Salt Lake. And it's pretty disgusting, but it is funny. So
yeah, I had a coworker who was like, she described herself as an atheist Jew, and she went to see it, and she was like telling me, I'm going to go see it and I'll tell you all about it. And she, the next day, was like, it was so offensive. I absolutely hated it. Like, she's like, I was shocked, but I was so.
And not just against Mormons. It's like
Africans. Yeah.
And the queer community. And
and Africans especially, which they've rewritten a little bit of that now. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I am personally very excited because then this means I don't have to watch all these shows. So thank you for your service, both of you. Where can people watch this?
Bonus episodes, crossover episodes on both feeds once a month. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yep, so you'll be able to listen. And the goal is to watch too. To wherever you already listen to Mormonland, wherever you already listen to Mormons in Media. It'll be there the first Sunday of every month.
So Spotify, YouTube, all the...
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep, nobody will have to do anything different.
Beautiful. Frictionless. Rebby Brassfield and Nicole Weaver, thank you for joining us, and thank you to Dave Noyce.
Always a pleasure.
And a special thanks for Nicole for also producing this. We remind our listeners that they can keep up on all the happenings in and about the church by subscribing to the Salt Lake Tribune's free Mormonland newsletter. Just go to sltrib.com to sign up, and we'll talk again next time on Mormonland.